They fined me $750 for unauthorized parking after just 14 minutes, right before my shift ended at the precinct. That same evening, a certified envelope from the HOA landed in my mailbox, stamped Violation Number 0047, demanding payment within 10 days or further enforcement. Welcome to my channel. I'm Daniel Reeves, a 44-year-old code enforcement officer out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and this is where I untangle what really happens when an HOA forgets the law applies to them too. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, especially if you've ever had a notice taped to your door for something absurd. And tell me, where are you watching from tonight? I love seeing which towns are fighting the same battles. I'd bought the house on Birchwood Lane 2 years ago, after my wife passed. She used to say the only thing that could fix my head after a rough day was tinkering with old engines, so I restored a 1967 Mustang convertible in her memory. That car was never about flash. It was the sound of her laugh in the open air, the smell of engine oil on my hands. I kept it immaculate, parked in my driveway under a canopy I installed to keep off the Carolina rain. The HOA never said a word until new management took over this spring. The letter that started it all arrived April 9, 2024. Violation: unapproved vehicle storage structure. They claimed my canopy, a $249 aluminum-framed cover bought from a local hardware store, disrupted neighborhood aesthetics. I checked the bylaws, Section 6.2a. Temporary carports must not exceed 8 feet in height or 20 feet in length. Mine measured 7 by 18. Compliant. Still, they fined me, citing a special interpretation adopted informally. When I called, the president, a man named Harold Baines, said, "Daniel, you work for the city, right? You should understand compliance. Just pay it and move on." That one line settled it for me. I wasn't paying for their power trip. The next week, I started digging. Not just emotionally, but physically. File drawers, public records, archived minutes. I logged into the county's Register of Deeds portal and pulled every HOA filing since 1999. Most folks never realize you can do that for free. What I found made my pulse jump. Their governing covenants had technically expired under the North Carolina Marketable Title Act 10 years earlier. They'd renewed partial provisions, but missed the re-recording deadline for one tract, ours. I kept quiet about it at first. I wanted to be sure. I copied the parcel ID, 0718-549381, and matched it against the plat map. Sure enough, the recorded Birchwood Estates Phase 2 boundaries excluded our cul-de-sac by 0.27 acres. I called my friend Max, a real estate attorney who used to serve on the city's planning board. He met me for coffee at a diner near the courthouse, wearing his usual ink-stained cuffs and crooked glasses. "Max," I said, sliding the printout across the table, "tell me I'm reading this right." He leaned in, squinting. "You're not just right," he muttered. "You're sitting outside their recorded authority. They can't enforce squat on that parcel unless renewed unanimously by all homeowners. Did they ever get a supermajority vote?" "Nope," I said, "and they're fining folks every week." He grinned. "Document everything. Let them hang themselves in the minutes. You'll need a clean record before you move." Knowledge nugget number 1. In most U.S. states, an HOA must record covenant renewals every 30 years and maintain geographic accuracy in their plats. Miss the filing or include the wrong parcel, and their enforcement power over that land lapses entirely. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for May 2nd, inside the community clubhouse. I went, wearing my city-issued badge clipped low on my belt. Hey, just to remind myself who actually understood code. They started the meeting with a new agenda item. Reeves Property, ongoing non-compliance. Harold's tone was smug. "Mr. Reeves," he said, "until you remove the canopy, daily fines will accrue at $50 per day starting May 10th. We can place a lien if necessary." I leaned forward. "You're threatening a lien on a property you don't even have jurisdiction over, Harold." The room fell quiet. Someone coughed near the snack table. "Excuse me?" he asked. "You heard me," I said. "Your covenants never refiled for this tract. That means you're just neighbors with opinions, not a governing body." Gasps. One woman whispered to another. Harold chuckled nervously. "You misunderstand how HOA authority works." "No," I replied. "I enforce municipal codes for a living. I know exactly how authority works. I could feel my pulse steady, cold and focused. For the first time since the funeral, I felt that same purpose again. Not just keeping order, but protecting people from those who misuse it. The board voted to defer action, but Harold smirked like it was temporary. As I walked out, a few neighbors patted my shoulder, murmuring thanks. Others looked away, afraid to be seen taking sides. I understood. Fear's a currency in these neighborhoods. But I'd already made up my mind. I wasn't leaving until the books balanced. When I got home, I opened a fresh file folder labeled Birchwood, May 2024. I started logging every contact, every letter, every date. April 9th, April 15th, May 2nd. The paper felt heavier than it should have. The smell of toner clung to my fingers. 2 days later, a note appeared on my windshield in red ink. Remove that eyesore or else. No signature, just shaky block letters. I took a photo with timestamp, 6:42 a.m., slid it into the folder. Evidence, line 43. Somewhere inside me, I heard my wife's voice. Don't let them bully you, Danny. Just keep it clean, keep it right. So I did. I kept it lawful. But the clock was already ticking toward the showdown, the biomsesiko. Next morning, my security camera caught Harold pacing near my driveway at 6:12 a.m. He had a clipboard tucked under his arm and a measuring tape dangling from his hand. He crouched near the edge of my carport, stretched the tape, and scribbled something. When I stepped outside, he froze like a kid caught spray painting a wall. "Morning, Harold," I said. "Routine compliance check," he replied too quickly. "We're documenting dimensions." I gestured toward the lens above my garage. "Hope you smiled for the camera." That night, the HOA sent me an email titled Formal Warning, Escalation to Enforcement Council. I forwarded it to Max with a note. They're tightening the noose. He called me within the hour. "Let them," he said. "Every message they send strengthens your record. Don't reply emotionally. If they cross into harassment, you'll have grounds." 2 days later, a code inspector from the city, not my department, knocked on my door. He was polite, professional. "Anonymous complaint," he said, scanning my yard. "Alleged unpermitted structure." I laughed. "Figures. I'll show you the permit." I handed him the original from 2019, approved, stamped, and signed by the same office I once supervised. He looked relieved. "Sorry, man. I'll close this case today." That's when I realized the HOA wasn't just flexing. They were fishing, hoping to find a rule, any rule, that could justify their vendetta. Knowledge nugget number 2. Under selective enforcement doctrine, an HOA cannot apply rules inconsistently. If they ignore one resident's violation but target another, the enforcement becomes legally void and often exposes the board to liability for discrimination or harassment. The following week brought the second wave, letters taped to my door about unsightly grass edging, a mailbox paint discrepancy, and improper trash can placement. 3 in 1 week. I photographed each notice. C then took pictures of 5 nearby homes with the same supposed violations. Same grass line, same paint, same bin timing. By mid-May, my binder was 2 inches thick. I labeled each tab: harassment evidence, parcel map, HOA emails, city permits, witness notes. The sound of those binder rings snapping shut each night felt like armor plating. Then came the smear post. Someone on the community Facebook page, screen name Birchwood Voice, called me a rogue city cop hiding behind fake laws. The comments filled fast. "He's bringing his work home. Power trip. Kick him out." I didn't reply, but I printed every comment, complete with timestamps and user IDs. When I told my friend Carla, our retired neighbor who'd lived here since the 90s, she sighed. "Same thing happened to the Jacobs family in 2015, she said, tapping her thermos. "They just wanted to build a porch swing. The board buried them in fines until they sold. It's what Harold does: scare, bleed, repeat." Her story hit a nerve. I didn't care about my ego. I cared that folks like Carla lived in fear on their own streets. That night, while I changed the oil on the Mustang, I made a plan. I wasn't just going to defend myself. I'd dismantle the system they'd built on intimidation. But first, I needed to map every financial artery feeding that HOA. I spent the next weekend at the county clerk's office pulling public banking statements and vendor filings. Most HOAs file annual financials if they collect over $100,000 a year. Birchwood Estates reported $142,360 for 2023, mostly in maintenance fees. Yet their maintenance company, Ridgeview Property Services, shared a mailing address with Harold's Own Construction LLC. Conflict of interest, clear as day. By Monday morning, I had what I needed to start the dig for real. I requested the HOA's insurance policy under NC General Stat. 4047F 3-1-18. Association records open to owners upon reasonable request. Harold ignored it. I sent a certified letter. Still no reply. That was fine. Ignoring. A lawful records request is a violation itself. The following Thursday, they posted another notice of lien intent on my door. $1,150 this time, plus administrative processing. I stood there, fingers tracing the embossed seal, feeling my pulse climb but not my temper. I slid the notice into my folder, took a breath and whispered to the air, "You just billed the wrong guy." Later that night, I filmed a quick update for the channel. If you've ever dealt with a rogue HOA, I said into the lens, drop a comment with your best tactic for standing up to them. If you haven't, but you think these groups need oversight, tell the lurkers, yeah, I know some board members watch, exactly what transparency means to you. The response flooded in, thousands of homeowners venting stories from Arizona to Maine. Turns out Birchwood wasn't an outlier, it was a microcosm. By early June, the HOA scheduled a special enforcement session at the clubhouse. The agenda named only one resident, Reeves D. Failure to comply. I brought my binder, a digital recorder, North Carolina's one-party consent makes it legal, and a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've already read the rulebook cover to cover. Harold opened with his usual drawl. "Daniel, you've shown repeated disregard for community standards." "Community standards," I repeated, "or Harold standards." A murmur rolled through the crowd. He lifted a hand for silence. "This is official business. You're out of order." I smiled. "Actually, since you failed to renew authority over this tract, this meeting isn't official at all. But by all means, continue the performance." He reddened. "You think you can intimidate us with your city badge?" I leaned forward, voice steady. "No, Harold. I'm using the same law that governs you." I watched his composure crack just slightly, enough to know I'd found the seam in his armor. Which, what he didn't know yet, was that I'd already secured something far more potent than arguments. That something potent was sitting in a manila envelope under the passenger seat of my truck. A signed assignment from Ridgeview's prior maintenance subcontractor, giving me full rights to an unpaid invoice of $7,800 the HOA still owed. I'd bought it for $1 through a holding company my lawyer helped me set up, an anonymous LLC registered out of Wilmington. By law, once I became the assignee, they owed me, not the vendor. They had 30 days to pay or face collections. I didn't tell a soul yet. I wanted them comfortable, arrogant, the kind of arrogance that always leaves a trail of emails. The day after the meeting, I walked the neighborhood. The sky hung heavy with summer heat, and sprinklers ticked across the lawns. Carla waved from her porch holding a plastic cup of lemonade. "You looked calm up there," she said. "Had to be," I replied. "They're waiting for me to snap, but every minute they talk, they dig deeper." She nodded, lowering her voice. "You're not the first to fight them, Daniel. Just be careful. They play dirty when cornered." I smiled. "So do I. The difference is, I do it clean." That weekend, I cross-checked the HOA's architectural approval logs. They'd approved Harold's backyard deck expansion last September, 12 feet beyond setback limits. I photographed it, measured twice, logged GPS coordinates, and compared them with the plat filed at the planning department. The hypocrisy was textbook. Knowledge nugget number 3. When an HOA board member benefits from rule exceptions not offered to others, it's called self-dealing. Most state statutes treat it as a breach of fiduciary duty, grounds for removal, and, in some cases, civil liability. The deeper I dug, the clearer the pattern became. Harold's construction company was billing the HOA for emergency fence repairs, storm cleanups, sod replacement, all conveniently after minor weather eve. Hence that never made county damage reports. He'd siphoned over $40,000 in 1 year. I knew then the key wasn't to fight him in the driveway or the meeting. It was to fight him in the ledger. Late one night, as I sorted receipts on the kitchen table, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I answered. Silence. Then a low voice. Drop it, Reeves. Some of us like peace around here. Click. I stared at the wall clock, 11:27 p.m., and hit record on my phone. Date stamped. Lawful. The harassment had just crossed into intimidation. The next morning, I installed a second camera near the garage and motion sensors by the fence line. I wasn't scared exactly, but my hands shook while tightening the last screw. Losing my wife had already burned out most of my fear. What I had left was duty, the stubborn kind that keeps you standing even when you're tired of the view. That afternoon, I filed a public records request for all HOA correspondence with Ridgeview Property Services between 2020 and 2023. The clerk gave me a tight smile. "You're not the first to ask," she said. "Another resident tried last year, but they dropped it." "Well," I said, "I don't drop things." 2 days later, a thick packet arrived in my mailbox, 62 pages of contracts and billing statements. I spent the evening highlighting dates, matching signatures, tracing overlapping PO numbers. The paper smelled of old toner and cigarette smoke. Then I saw it. One invoice paid twice, once from HOA funds and once from Harold's LLC bank account. Perfect duplicate amounts, $3,275. That was the proof. Misappropriation, plain and simple. Around midnight, I drafted a memo. Preliminary financial irregularities, Birchwood Estates, HOA, FY 2022-2023. 5 pages, clean formatting, footnotes, exhibits attached. I wasn't just building a case, I was writing the opening statement for the moment they tried to corner me. Before turning in, I filmed a brief segment for the channel, calm and direct. Question for you all. How far should an HOA control what's on your property? Your car, your paint, your porch lights? Where's the line between community upkeep and personal rights? Drop your answer below. Let's see where you stand. By the time I woke up, that clip had hit 50,000 views. The comments were a split of rage, laughter, and solidarity. People were tired of the same script repeating across America, HOAs weaponizing bylaws to pad pockets or stroke egos. At work, my colleague Nate stopped by my cubicle. "Man, you poking the bear," he said, half grinning. "Yeah," I said, flipping a file closed. "But I'm also holding the leash." He chuckled. "Just make sure the leash doesn't snap." The next HOA email came the following Friday. Urgent notice. Violation count, 11. Total fines, $2,050. They attached grainy photos of my recycling bin half an inch from the curb line and my mailbox in need of repainting. I typed a reply, paused, and deleted it. Instead, I printed the email and slid it into the binder. Evidence number 82. They thought they were tightening pressure, but all they were really doing was building the scaffolding for their own fall. 3 days later, I drove to the courthouse to file my small claims action as a signee of the Ridgeview invoice. The clerk recognized my name. "HOA again?" she asked, smiling faintly. "Always," I said. By then, the narrative was turning. A few neighbors had started whispering about misused funds. Carla texted me a photo of a new sign posted by the clubhouse. Special assessment vote, July 1st. They were planning to raise dues by 20%. That was the moment I knew timing mattered. I circled July 1st on my calendar. That meeting would be my stage, and Harold's undoing. June rolled into July like wet heat, pressing down on the neighborhood. Every driveway shimmered, flags drooped, and the air itself seemed to hum with tension. The HOA newsletter announced the upcoming special assessment vote in bold red. Mandatory attendance requested. They claimed rising maintenance costs required a 20% dues increase, plus a temporary infrastructure fee of $600 per household. What they didn't mention was that $600 multiplied by 114 homes equals $68,400, enough to patch every number Harold had siphoned if anyone traced the accounts. I spent evenings walking the cul-de-sac, quiet conversations with neighbors who were finally beginning to question the board. Carla brewed iced tea on her porch, waving me over. "People are scared, Daniel," she said softly. "They think if they speak up, they'll lose access to the pool or get fined for weeds." "That's the playbook," I told her. Fear makes revenue predictable. She nodded, eyes glinting behind her glasses. Then maybe it's time the revenue got unpredictable. That night I worked late, finalizing my exhibits. My binder now weighed nearly 8 pounds. Maps, invoices, duplicate payments, expired covenants, and one certified copy of the Ridgeview assignment. I rehearsed my lines like a cross-examination. Every page felt like a loaded round ready for the chamber. The Friday before the vote, Harold's crew struck back. A fresh citation landed in my mailbox. Unauthorized signage, political messaging. The sign in question? A 3-inch decal on my garage fridge that said, "Support local law enforcement." They were getting desperate, clumsy even. Knowledge nugget number 4. Federal and state fair housing rules protect political and service-related displays on private property. HOAs may regulate size and placement, but outright bans usually fail under public policy grounds. Still, the paper trail mattered. Each overreach added weight to the pattern, harassment escalating as contra. All slipped away. That evening, I filmed another quiet monologue for the channel, sitting in the dim garage light beside the Mustang. "How much control would you give your HOA?" I asked the camera. "Decorations? Flags? What about what's parked in your own driveway? At what point does a community rulebook become a tool for punishment?" I leaned back, grease-smudged fingers tapping the fender. "Tell me where you'd draw that line, or at least like the video so someone else sees it before they sign a deed." By midnight, half the neighborhood had shared the clip. One neighbor, Jordan, a young father, messaged me privately. "I've got copies of last year's ballots. They faked quorum." He handed me a flash drive the next morning, sweat beating down his temples. "Don't tell anyone it came from me." Inside were scanned proxies with handwriting that matched across different names, all signed within minutes of each other. Forged votes that turned the 2023 assessment, approved by majority, into a fraud. I called Max first thing. He answered between court hearings. "You've got them, Daniel. Chain of authority, self-dealing, false quorum. That's enough to trigger a state investigation. You want to go public?" "Not yet," I said. "Let them think they still run the show. The bigger the crowd, the bigger the fall." He chuckled. "You always liked your drama. Call it accountability theater." July 1st arrived under a sky that threatened rain. The clubhouse parking lot overflowed. People leaned on cars, murmuring. I wore a plain shirt, binder under my arm, and a calm smile that came from weeks of documentation. Inside, Harold stood behind a folding table stacked with ballots. "Welcome, everyone," he began. "We're here to ensure Birchwood remains a community of standards." I waited until he called for questions. My voice carried steady across the room. "Before anyone votes, I'd like to introduce Exhibit Sandalas. Proof that this HOA no longer holds authority over 21 homes, including mine." A ripple spread through the crowd. Harold's jaw tightened. "Mr. Reeves, this isn't the time." "It's exactly the time," I said, stepping forward, sliding the parcel map onto the table. "Filed April 3rd, 1994, and never re-recorded, which means every fine you've issued here is invalid." Gasps. Someone whispered, "Is that true?" Harold's voice rose. "He's twisting paperwork to confuse you." I lifted the second document, the assignment agreement. "Then maybe this will clear it up. As of June 14th, your HOA owes me $7,800. The debt is real. The signature's yours. I'll collect lawfully through court." He blinked. "That's extortion." "No, Harold," I said evenly. "It's business. You forgot that when you used association funds to pay your own company twice." A murmur became a roar. Papers rustled, phones lifted, recording. Rain started tapping the roof as if punctuating each word. Harold lunged for the mic. "You can't." The door opened behind him. Officer Mendoza from the local precinct stepped in, rain still glistening on her jacket. She glanced around, eyes sharp. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect timing," I said, sliding her a copy of the small claims filing. "Just here to ensure transparency." She nodded, scanning the page. "Seems in order. Carry on, folks, but keep it civil." That's when I saw it in Harold's eyes. The realization that his bluff had been called publicly, lawfully, and on record. He tried to rally the board, but half of them were already backing away. The vote never happened. Instead, the room fractured into arguments, questions, accusations. Carla stood up from the back row, voice trembling but loud. I moved to suspend the board pending audit. The applause that followed wasn't polite. It was relief. The rain had turned into a full storm by the time the meeting broke apart. People left in clusters, clutching wet papers, muttering in disbelief. I stayed behind, packing my binder slowly while Harold argued in hushed tones with 2 remaining board members. When he noticed me, his face was the color of wet clay. "You think this is over, Reeves?" he hissed. "No," I said calmly. "I think it's just beginning." That night, retaliation came fast. My mailbox door was ripped clean off its hinge, screws scattered like silver teeth on the pavement. The next morning, a letter from the HOA's attorney appeared. New firm, new tone. Cease and desist from defamatory statements against board members. I smiled as I read it. Desperation always arrives wrapped in legalese. Still, it got under my skin. For the first time, I worried not for myself, but for Carla, for Jordan, for the quiet families who just wanted peace. I started leaving the porch light on all night, the way my wife used to when I worked late shifts. 2 days later, code enforcement trucks rolled through the neighborhood again. Different city department this time. Harold had filed a new complaint. Unlicensed auto work at residential property. They thought they could weaponize my own profession against me. The inspector, a young guy named Adam, met my eye with a faint grin. "Anonymous complaint again?" he said, clipboard raised. "Anonymous," I echoed. "Sure." He took a quick look around, saw nothing but a tidy garage, and signed off the report. "You're clear. Sorry they keep wasting your time." "Not wasted," I said. "Documented." That night, I added the report to the binder. Section 5, page 112. I could feel the story tightening, the point where frustration turns into strategy. I didn't want to fight. I wanted reform, something lasting enough that the next widow or young family didn't get steamrolled by bullies and polos with clipboards. I met Max again downtown, this time in a diner that smelled of bacon grease and rain-soaked vinyl. He slid a fresh document across the table, a draft complaint to the state's Department of Justice Consumer Protection Division. "They've crossed into harassment," he said. "Plus, if those forged ballots hold, it's potential mail fraud." I nodded, tracing a finger along the signature line. "We'll file after the insurance company moves." "What insurance company?" I grinned. "The HOA's fidelity bond. They have to carry one to cover dishonest acts by officers. I filed an anonymous claim last week with the bank statements attached." Max whistled low. "You're setting off fireworks in slow motion." "Exactly," I said, "and they'll be the ones lighting the fuse." By mid-July, the pressure cooker burst. HOA emails leaked to several residents, screen grabs showing Harold ordering the property manager to bury any correspondence from Reeves and tighten enforcement optics. Someone forwarded them to a local reporter from the Raleigh Ledger. I didn't send them, but I didn't stop them either. When the article hit, the headline was surgical. HOA faces questions over expired covenants, self-dealing allegations. Within a day, my inbox filled with messages from other neighborhoods. "Can you help us audit our HOA? How did you find the filings? What's a covenant renewal deadline?" It was surreal. One man's driveway battle turning into a small civic classroom. I filmed another short clip. "If your HOA finds you, ask for the statute. Ask for the filing date. Ask for the vote count. Knowledge is leverage." The comments section exploded again, but this time with purpose. People sharing case numbers, state codes, their own documents. For once, social media felt useful. That weekend, Carla called. "You've got patrol cars on your street," she whispered. I stepped outside. 2 cruisers idled at the corner, lights off, windows up. Then one rolled forward. Officer Mendoza stepped out, rain still in her hair. "Evening, Mr. Reeves," she said. "We got a call about a disturbance here." "Let me guess," I said. "Anonymous?" "Yep," she said, sighing. "Same phrasing as before. We'll mark it false. You're clean." I thanked her, but as she left, I felt the tension tighten again. Harold was trying to provoke me into something stupid, one angry move he could twist against me. I wasn't giving him that. Instead, I doubled down on documentation. Every noise, every knock, every letter. I started a logbook with exact timestamps. 07:16, 9:37 p.m. Unknown vehicle idled 2 minutes across from driveway. 07:17, 6:12 a.m. Trash can moved from curb to sidewalk without my doing. Small things, but they built a picture. The lowest point came 3 nights later when I found the Mustang's side mirror smashed, shards glittering under the streetlight. I stood there, chest tight, remembering how my wife used to sit shotgun, feet on the dash, singing off-key to the radio. I knelt, picked up the largest fragment and whispered, "Not this car. Not this memory." I called the non-emergency line, filed the report, and emailed it to Max with subject: "Pattern escalation. Retaliation evidence." He replied within minutes, "Hang tight, clock's running down." Because what Harold didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that I'd already locked the first reversal in place. The Ridgeview debt had matured. On paper, the HOA now owed me $7,800 plus fees. In 72 hours, I'd lawfully file for lien against their operating account. I closed my binder that night with a satisfying thud. Rain drummed on the roof. Somewhere between fear and focus, I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about returning the balance, making the rules serve the people again. 22 hours later, at exactly 10 o'clock a.m. on July 20th, I walked into the Wake County Clerk's office wearing my city badge and a quiet smile. I handed the clerk the notarized claim package, assignment contract, unpaid invoice, affidavit of notice sent. The sound of her date stamp hitting the form, thunk, 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 was oddly musical. She slid the certified copy back to me. "You've officially recorded your lien," she said. Walking out into the humidity, I felt something loosen in my chest. It wasn't triumph yet, but it was the first clean breath I'd taken in months. Back home, I placed the stamped document into the binder behind a yellow divider marked Reversal Number 1, Leverage Secured. Visual beat number 1, the moment the paper met the podium, legally shifting power. The HOA now owed me on record, and the interest meter was running. For the next few days, silence from Harold's camp. No letters, no knocks. It was eerie. Then on July 26th, a new email pinged my inbox. Urgent, emergency board meeting 727, financial status discussion, members only. I smiled. The dominoes were starting to wobble. I arrived early the next day. The clubhouse smelled of fresh coffee and nervous sweat. Papers were spread across the table. Harold looked pale, flipping through statements. I caught a glance of the spreadsheet, liabilities column suddenly in the red. My lien had hit their bank. "Mr. Reeves," Harold began, voice thin, "it appears there's a misunderstanding about a certain claim." "No misunderstanding," I said, setting my recorder on the table. "You're holding association funds in violation of fiduciary duty. My claim is lawful." "You're crippling this community," he snapped. "You're going to make everyone suffer." "No, Harold," I said evenly. "You did that when you used their money as your wallet." That broke the dam. Board member Lisa, a nurse with tired eyes, pushed her back. "I didn't sign up for this," she said. "You told us it was routine maintenance." "Lisa," Harold started. She cut him off. "You told me not to look at the invoices." The room erupted, members talking over each other, chairs scraping, papers slapping. I sat still, letting it burn. Sometimes justice doesn't need a gavel, just sunlight. Outside, thunder rolled again. Typical North Carolina summer theatrics. The rain began just as Officer Mendoza walked in, summoned as security for a contentious meeting. Her presence stilled the room. She nodded toward me. "Everything above board?" I slid her the binder open to the certified lien. "All filed, all public." She scanned it, then looked up. "Looks clean to me. Proceed, folks." It was the perfect neutral validation, my action, her confirmation. Reversal number 1 had landed in daylight. The following morning, an envelope arrived taped to my door. No insults this time, just a folded copy of the HOA's check register with Harold's signature scratched out in black ink. Anonymous, but I knew who sent it. The tide was shifting. Carla stopped by that afternoon, raincoat still dripping. "They're talking about resignations," she whispered. "Maybe the whole board." "Good," I said. "But resignations aren't enough. We fix the system, not just the faces." That night, I drafted a proposal for the next meeting. A reform package built from every lesson this mess had taught me. Term limits, open records access, annual audits by third party, mandatory public comment periods, and a community charter forbidding board members from contracting with their own companies. I titled it, Birchwood Restoration Plan. It wasn't vengeance. It was structure. The kind of guardrails my wife would have insisted on if she were still alive. As I typed, I found myself talking to her in my head. You'd like this, Emily. You always said fairness needs a form, not a fight. I paused, hands hovering over the keyboard, the smell of rain drifting through the open window. For the first time, the anger felt smaller than the purpose. 2 days twice. Wise later, Max called. State investigators just confirmed. They're opening a review under the Community Association Act. They cited your documentation as cause. I exhaled slowly. How long until they move? They're already interviewing board members. Press might get wind soon. I laughed softly. Perfect. Right before the next HOA election. By early August, flyers appeared on every doorstep. Emergency community meeting. August 6th, 6:00 p.m. Attendance required. Harold hadn't quit yet. Maybe he still believed he could spin it, reclaim control. But I had the binder, the lien, the filings, and the one thing he'd underestimated: public trust rebuilt through truth. That evening, I recorded one last clip before the showdown. Every neighborhood has 2 choices, I said into the lens. You can live under fear of fines, or you can live under fair rules. What would you choose if it were your driveway, your family's peace, your freedom to breathe in your own home? I looked straight into the camera. Tell me in the comments, what's the line between order and oppression? The video clocked 100,000 views overnight, and with it, Birchwood Lane went from a quiet cul-de-sac to a case study. August 6th landed thick with humidity, the kind that makes shirt collars stick and tempers rise faster. By 5:30, cars lined both sides of Birchwood Lane. Porch lights flickered on like a string of little verdicts waiting to be read. Inside the clubhouse, every chair was taken. Neighbors pressed shoulder to shoulder against the back wall. I'd brought my binder, now scarred from use, and the Birchwood Restoration Plan, clipped neatly at the front. Harold stood behind the folding table again, tie loosened, eyes ringed with sleepless defiance. Before we begin, he said into the mic, let's remember this association has served faithfully for 20 years. Don't let misinformation tear it apart. I waited until he finished the speech about unity and civility. When he finally opened the floor, I rose. I move that before any vote, we hear the financial report for the last fiscal year. Accurate numbers, not estimates. He hesitated. Those records are private board documents. Not under 447 F3 118, I said. Members have inspection rights. I've already received a copy from the clerk's office. Would you like me to read the totals? The crowd murmured. Carla called out, read them. I opened the binder, pages rustling like wings. Total income, $142,360. Expenditures to Ridgeview Construction, Harold's LLC, $41,275. No competitive bids, no board approval in the minutes. Duplicate invoices submitted for payment on September 10th and October 2nd. Gasps filled the room. Harold's hand gripped the mic stand. That's taken out of context. Then give us context, I said. Right now. He stammered something about storm debris cleanup, but Lisa cut in. There wasn't even a storm that week. We all remember, it was dry for a month. Someone shouted, "Where's the money, Harold?" He tried to regain control. "This meeting's out of order." "No," I said, stepping forward, voice low but firm. "This meeting is finally in order." A crack of thunder shook the windows. Officer Mendoza was there again, standing by the exit in uniform, arms folded. She wasn't here as an enforcer this time. She was the neutral anchor, the law's silent witness. I handed her a manila envelope. Filed copies of the financial discrepancies, officer. For the record. She nodded. Got it. Continue. Harold's shoulders slumped. He knew the tide had turned. I could see the sweat bead on his temples, the kind that comes from realizing your authority's just been repossessed. Then the moment hit, the one I'd built toward for months. I reached into the binder and lifted a single sheet, the stamped lease. N. As of July 20th, this association's account has been legally encumbered due to unpaid obligations stemming from Ridgeview's own invoices, meaning, until resolved, this board cannot levy or collect further assessments. The silence was seismic. Someone whispered, "He owns them." I didn't correct it. The truth was simpler. They'd boxed themselves into their own rules. Lisa stood again, voice trembling but clear. I motioned to dissolve the current board pending audit and reconstitute under interim governance. Carla seconded it. Hands went up across the room. Dozens. The count wasn't even close. Harold opened his mouth, but Officer Mendoza lifted her hand slightly. You've got your vote, folks. It's on record. And just like that, the room erupted in applause. Real applause, the kind that breaks months of fear. People hugged, shouted, cried. For a second the air smelled of rain and something cleaner. Freedom. As the noise died down, I stepped to the mic. For what it's worth, I said, I don't want your money, your power, or your thanks. I just want a neighborhood where the rules protect everyone equally, where your car, your porch light, your garden gnome, whatever, doesn't become someone else's control mechanism. The laughter that followed wasn't mocking, it was release. Harold left before the meeting ended, shoulders hunched, papers half folded under his arm. The rest of the board followed, one by one. Afterward, I stepped outside. Rain slicked the parking lot, streetlights reflecting off puddles. Carla joined me under her umbrella. You did it, she said softly. We did, I corrected. But it's not finished yet. The system has to be rebuilt, not just the faces replaced. She nodded. Then let's start with your plan. I glanced back at the clubhouse window where the crowd was still talking, papers passing hand to hand. A faint smile tugged at my mouth. Yeah, I said. Let's start there. As thunder rolled away into the distance, I knew the hardest part was done, but the most important part, the second reversal, was still waiting. The reform deal, the rebuild, the proof that justice could be more than payback. By the next morning, the neighborhood group chat was a waterfall of disbelief and cautious optimism. Someone had posted a video clip of the vote. Lisa raising her hand, Officer Mendoza confirming the count. It spread fast, shared across town groups and HOA reform pages. The comments split between "finally" and "how do we do this in ours?" That same morning, the Raleigh Ledger called. The reporter, Megan Hart, wanted to confirm the board's dissolution and financial irregularities. I didn't grandstand. I sent her the public documents, lien filings, and meeting minutes. She thanked me, her voice half whisper, half adrenaline. You realize this could change how small associations operate statewide, she said. I'm counting on it, I told her. By week's end, the state's Consumer Protection Division issued a preliminary notice of investigation. Harold formally resigned, citing health reasons. 2 other board members followed. The HOA's insurer froze the association's account pending audit, confirming my lien as legitimate. And within days, the community that had once whispered behind blinds started meeting in open daylight, folding chairs under carports, no fear of clipboards or fines. That Sunday, Carla and I hosted what we called the reset meeting in my driveway. No agenda, no board, just neighbors. Kids biked past, someone brought pie, a retired engineer offered to draft transparency templates for the new charter. For the first time since moving here, laughter filled Birchwood without tension underneath it. I read from the Birchwood Restoration Plan, section by section. Term limits, 2 consecutive years. Public access to meeting records within 7 days of request. Annual third-party audits. Prohibition on self-dealing and family contracting. And the part that drew cheers, mandatory community voting on any fine over $250. The plan passed unanimously. That night, as the sky deepened to indigo, I sat on the Mustang's hood, binder closed beside me. I could still smell the faint ozone from the earlier storm. Carla handed me a cup of coffee, then pointed at the binder. You going to keep that thing forever? I smiled. Probably. It's my reminder of what happens when good people look the other way too long. She nodded. And what happens when one of them doesn't? A week later, the Ledger published its follow-up. State launches HOA reform inquiry after Birchwood case. The piece quoted me briefly. Accountability isn't revenge. It's maintenance for democracy. Reversal number 2 landed quietly that afternoon. An email from the Department of Justice confirming a consent agreement with the new interim HOA committee. In exchange for my lien withdrawal, they signed binding reforms, transparent elections, published audits, ethics oversight, and a 5-year term limit on all officers. It wasn't a settlement. It was a reset in writing. I walked down Birchwood Lane that evening, dusk thick with cicadas. Porch lights glowed warm, not watchful. The same neighbors who'd once avoided eye contact now waved. Someone had fixed my mailbox. No note. Just done. 3 weeks later, the first community day took place. Kids painted fences, retirees planted perennials near the clubhouse, and a banner hung between 2 trees. Birchwood belongs to everyone. The air smelled of barbecue and wet grass. I didn't give a speech. I just watched. Sometimes silence says more. Before leaving, I opened the binder one last time and added the final page. A photo of the Mustang shining under the clear sky, reflection of the banner across its hood. And beneath it, I wrote in pen, "Balance restored, 2024. I slipped the binder onto the shelf beside Emily's framed photo. Her smile caught the light just right, like she was in on the whole thing. If you believe I fought the right way, and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend, someone who needs a reason to stand up. Subscribe so future stories reach you first. And as responsible citizens, share this so others learn how to fight fair. That part's on us." What changed after? Harold was fined $8,500 for fiduciary breach and barred from holding office in any registered HOA for 5 years. The insurer repaid the misused funds into a community improvement grant. Birchwood's first audit published online, free to anyone. Local news covered it under a headline I'll never forget, "Justice in the Driveway." And me? I still park that Mustang right where it belongs, in my own driveway, under open Carolina sky. I keep the porch light on, not out of fear anymore, but as a beacon for whatever neighbor decides to fight their next battle clean. Because there's always another one coming.